All right, Tuesday, the 27th already of October. It's supposed to be a festive time to kick off the fall holidays with Halloween coming up this Saturday. Guess again. The stress and tension and anxiety in this country is clearly palpable, clearly created, clearly being executed and implemented and spread all over with a remarkable diversification because of the plan, and by the plan, and for the plan, and of the plan, which does not include us. All right? We are useless eaters as far as many of the elite on this planet are concerned. I'm sure some of them at the top are probably reasonable people who have what we would call morality at some level, and there are others who seem to be non-human in their ability to wage world wars, killing 100 million people. That was just what the Bolsheviks, the Zionists, the communists did last century. So it takes a certain kind of mentality that most other people other than you folks would understand, would never understand. You understand it. There's just no way that people can understand how ruthless and wicked the controllers of this planet are. Just something about suffering and death that they do extremely well with. They like it. They bring it on and they disperse it. Let me bring you up to date on Jordan Maxwell. Many of you were with us last night when Jordan had a heart attack just before coming on the program. He did stabilize. The EMTs got him to the hospital. He called me last night after the program and said he was in ICU, and they were doing tests and all that, and they had stabilized his blood pressure, which was over 250. They had gotten it way down, 160, I think he said, something like that. I got another call. I was just getting ready to call him this morning down at this Southern California hospital, and the phone rang, and it was Jordan. He had called in to tell me that they were getting ready to roll him into the operating room today to operate and do a surgical procedure, which is commonly known as an angioplasty. So they stick something up the artery in your arm, weave it all the way to your heart, and then expand it so it enlarges the opening in the artery that feeds blood into the heart. I haven't heard since this morning. He was thinking that he might be, I think they were teasing him, discharged today. I don't see that, but I'll let you know if I hear anything. He may call any time. I hope he made it through the procedure. He is a treasure that we can't afford to be without in these times. And so, again, hold a good thought for Jordan at this time. And I will keep you fully up to date on whatever I find out.
To each and every one of you listening to this broadcast tonight, there's no question that we are facing extraordinary violence for violence sake. And I think, Jeff, that most of the listening audience across the world right now understands that I was right there in Detroit way back in 1968 when we had the extraordinary violence go on that began the downfall of Detroit, Michigan, the Motor City. And at the time, the African Americans were well employed. They were making money hand over fist at Ford Motor Company, at GMC, Dodge, Chrysler, of course, and they were enjoying Motown and music. And of course, I went to Detroit a lot, and I worked in Detroit for 20 years. And
wow,
what happened?
That's a long time. I didn't know that. 20 years.
Oh yeah, that was my summer job. I trucked out of Detroit right off of Telegraph Road with Corrigan Moving Systems, which was a part of United Van Lines, and that was my summer job. And I got to see this stuff firsthand. And I know one thing: Antifa or Black Lives Matter or Boogaloo or any of these people, They are not trying to form a more just and a fairer constitutional form of governance.
Oh, they're tearing it down. Burn it. Burn it to the ground. That's all they do.
That's exactly right. They are anarchists. Yeah. And either we as the civilized people of this country shut them down, bring in the National Guard and whatever it takes, as much police force as it takes. And I mean, go in there and arrest every single one of them with sheer force of numbers and mechanized.
Right.
Otherwise, here's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I remember Detroit in '68 because I was a college student. In fact, I was in I'd gone to boot camp that summer in Fort Benning, Georgia, with the United States Army, and that really sobered me to what was going to happen to me in Vietnam as an Army officer, and because I was in ROTC. But the riots began. That was the beginning of the downfall of Detroit, because what you had were a bunch of, unfortunately, African Americans starting to take command of the schools, which, as reported by Brian Williams at one point, had a 78% dropout flunk-out rate. The schools. So if you were 78. White... Yeah, 78%. That's documented. That's in effect in one of the books I wrote. Yeah. And so you had whites were intimidated to the point that they were scared for their lives. You then had, and I'm part of history because I saw this with my own eyes. I didn't dare, and I drove a 48-foot van, United Van Lines, United. And Corrigan Moving Systems, up and down Telegraph. I was one of the drivers that moved 1.2 million whites out of Detroit because they feared for their lives. The schools were trashed, burglaries everywhere, shoplifting. Wow. Every business was shoplifted to death, and burning of cars, graffiti everywhere. Trash everywhere. In other words, all of these people who had these extraordinary opportunities to sustain and maintain a quality society there in Detroit, Michigan, which formerly, before 1941, was virtually all white. And now Detroit is virtually, I think it's somewhere between 70 and 75% black. Schools failing still. You have businesses have to literally have electronic gearing to make sure the shoplifting is held at a minimum. People lock up their businesses. You can't come into a business or a lawyer's firm or a doctor's firm or any other kind of firm, and you can't even talk to 7-Eleven or any of the convenience stores because they're behind plexiglass, and it's double plexiglass, so you can't shoot through it and try to steal from the money. And so that's what's happened to Detroit, Michigan, and I got to watch it. And so I'm bringing some perspective here. If we allow, whether it's Philadelphia tonight and last night, because I can tell you this, if it was a white person that got shot, nobody would have breathed a word about it. Nobody would have said anything about it, because there have been plenty of white people shot because they did this, that, and the next thing across this country, and that never gets reported on mainstream media because it's no big deal. But here's a man in Philadelphia who charges 2 police officers with a knife. You got to be a damn fool to do something like that. I mean, if I got 2 police officers with Glock 9s or 357s or whatever they had in their hands at the time, I'm on my knees, I'm on the ground, whatever you say, yes sir, no sir, I'm here, and I would not approach them with a knife. I would not approach them with any kind of violence, and yet this person did that. So what I'm saying is, I don't care what and all of the situations that are happening, we as a nation, and I would say that 90% of African Americans in this country, law-abiding, good, upstanding, good people. I've worked with African Americans my whole life. I taught in the inner city. I worked when I worked heavy equipment. When I worked for United Van Lines, I worked for black drivers. I have hired African Americans and great working relationships with all of them. I've been a volunteer ski instructor for 24 years. I work with black students. I work with black ski instructors. So 90% of African Americans in America, they want us all to succeed. They want to succeed, and we are succeeding. And so in the end, I submit that we, the American people, black, white, brown, citizens who are doing their jobs, living by the standards of law and order, start supporting the police, start supporting governors, and supporting law and order, and absolutely do not tolerate these anarchists who would turn all of our cities into another Detroit, and at some point, there's no way that you're going to have a Walmart with jobs in a city that's being rampaged and looted by these anarchists.
They're going to pull out. They're going to pull
out, and then you will have what happened to Detroit. Detroit is in shambles, and we can all pretend Detroit, well, it's got all the new Muslims in there, so we've sent in 300,000
they're on the shelf waiting for their call.
They got a whole different call. And so what I'm saying is every person has to appreciate that we have got to pull together and we have got to crush this anarchy. I mean, crush BLM. That's called burning, looting, and mayhem. They have no answers or no solutions. They're not going into the inner city with teachers. They're not going into the inner city with building projects. They're not making anything better. They're burning, looting, and creating mayhem. Antifa is not taking any of its people and teaching the young how to respect this country, not after-school classes. They're not doing anything to make America better. They're simply burning, looting, and mayhem, and that has got to stop, and we really have to stop it with pure force. And the law and the rule of law, arrest them, prosecute them, and jail them, and let them find out what good citizenship is by sitting in jail for 10 or 20 years. I don't care. I love America. I love all of our citizens. I'm a part of America. Every citizen in this country is a part of me. I'm a part of them. We're all in this together, and we either get together, and I remember Ben Franklin said way back in 1776, we all better stick together. In other words, we rather hang together. We're all going to hang separately, and that, of course, he meant that the British would hang them all if they didn't hang together here and support the Revolutionary War. Well, we better support the United States of America here in the 21st century, or we're all going to find ourselves in deeper water than anybody understands at this point in time.
There, I'm just looking. Headlines going up momentarily, and I think you can find this story. I think it's the top Fox story. They have a number of videos. One person was walking through a looks like an athletic shoe store. Is it big store? Yep. Stripped. Nothing left. Gone. Here, look, the National Guard was purportedly sent out tonight to back the police. I'm sorry to say this, and I don't care what race the looters are, right? If they're Asian, if they're Caucasian, if they're black, the only way to stop this, when you have looters pouring into a Walmart and running out with goods, you go in there with live rounds and you take them out. And you do that one time, and the lesson, I think, will be learned all across the country. I'm sorry to say it, and if there were whites, I would say the same thing. You stop this kind of Stone Age lawlessness in its tracks. You don't patty cake. You don't, you don't stand there with your shields and get rocked to death as police officers. You take them out. All right? That's me. We are at that point now. I hate to say it. And again, if they're Asian or white, I don't care. This cannot be allowed to go on. And if the National Guard is there tonight, Frosty, how can they not deploy to protect a Walmart? I don't understand the leadership. I don't understand the calls. Maybe they were sent out there to help the police with no ammunition, which has been done before. They have no ammunition. They can't protect themselves. They've got their riots, their gear on, they've got their rifles, but they've got no ammunition. They have no right to use it. They'll have to stand there and take rocks being thrown at them, which can kill you. All manner of Molotov cocktails we've seen thrown. That instant death, if it breaks on you, you're done. So how long are we going to let this go on without really honestly dealing with it? And I repeat one more time for all of you minorities out there, I don't care what color the people are doing it. White, black, brown, Asian, I don't care. It's got to stop. We're at the end of the line now. We may lose the whole thing. We're going to lose some big cities temporarily. I think the police are going to withdraw. They simply cannot track thousands of looters moving from neighborhood to neighborhood, district to district, breaking into stores, burning stores. They're getting ready to burn and loot and rob like we haven't seen yet. And this is going to have to be dealt with, or we might as well just give it up now. Forget it. We don't have a country anymore.
You would be correct. And I absolutely support you to the stance that we either have to take total force to combat total lawlessness, and we must apply the rule of law, and the United States Constitution with the full force of the United States National Guard, United States Army, every police officer out there, Department of Homeland Security, I don't care. Right. We need to squash, to crush, and to absolutely obliterate these anarchists. Because these anarchists, if they're allowed to continue at this kind of behavior, they will not stop. And in the end, every person, whether it's 90% blacks that are out there looting stores and burning and pillaging and rampaging, you're killing your own neighborhoods. You're destroying your own jobs.
We saw them do that in Los Angeles. They're very good at it. Burn your own neighborhood up. Very smart.
It's extraordinary to me. And so in the final analysis, we either take control of this, or they and
we don't.
We don't, and we become victims. That's exactly it. For me, during the Vietnam War, even while I was in ROTC, and even though I pledged my honor to serve my country, and I still serve my country, I've never seen. We were against the war. We were against LBJ and Nixon, who were the biggest liars on the planet, and as corrupt could be. I remember William Lederer wrote a book, and I read it, and I remember after I got out of boot camp in '68.
Sure.
Yeah, Our Own Worst Enemy. But then there was David Halberstam, and he wrote The Best and the Brightest, and he exposed the Vietnam War for what it was. And then, of course, there were the Pentagon Papers by Daniel Ellsberg, and he exposed the Vietnam War. Well, in the process, I was never against my country. I was against the corrupt leaders who were pushing the Vietnam War. General Westmoreland was just so full of BS. Send us more. We're going to win. We're going to win with more. Let's get 500,000 kids over there and get them all shot up. Yeah, I don't know if anybody understands this or not, but the Vietnam War, of which I was a part, and I got to live, fortunately, but a lot of my friends died. In fact, I just got a horrible letter from one of my Navy SEAL buddies. His name is Joe, and he was a high school classmate. Some of the letters he's written me are so painful, so terrible. He has had the long shadow of the Vietnam War on his mind and in his body for over 50 years now. And guess what? He's my age. He's 73. He has not recovered. He has not recovered from that. And that is the tragedy of that era.
Well, see, that whole generation was scarred terribly, and many of them never did get over it. Many of them are long since dead. Suicide. That's right. Look at how many Iraqi veterans are committing suicide now.
22 a day. 22 a day. I think the number for the Afghanistan war and the Iraq war, with its weapons of mass destruction for its falsified reasoning by George W. Bush, who was a drunk and a cocaine user when he was in the National Guard, put there safely by his father, of course. He put us into that war, falsified the whole thing. I think at this point, with the average of 22 per day, I think in the last 15 years, 19 years now, all the suicides,
highest
I think it's over 50,000.
Highest casualty rate, I think, of any modern American military conflict, I think. Like I've read that.
It's
when you add in all
suicides.
The suicides. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's more than Vietnam.
They may not have died in combat, but they died because of combat, okay? Because of the war. All right. Yeah. Hold on a sec. We have to pause, Frosty. Hold on. We'll come right back with Frosty in just a minute. And again, none of this conversation has anything to do with racism. So don't even go there. This is about people of groups who are not acting as constitutional Americans should, at least in theory. Be right back. Okay, and we're back. Again, things in Philadelphia have gone from bad to worse, so that's just part of the run-up to this. And if I'm wrong, I hope I am wrong, and I will be the first to say, hey, I was wrong. There is no reason for me to think that in any way, shape, or form this is going anywhere else than what it appears to be going to, which is total chaos and anarchy, as Frosty has been saying. Here's what it sounds like. This is a little bit of reality of, I think I saw one white face, the rest are all African Americans. They're broken into a Walmart. They're looting a Walmart and other major stores below. Now just let's listen to the reality here. Theater of the mind, this is what it sounds like when they're going in to a Walmart to steal and loot and destroy.
Snap your money, y'all. Keep it
I'll move here.
Blacks are just pouring in the front door. And Walmart had put up plywood all over the front to save their windows. They were getting ready for this, but they couldn't stop the looting. Let's go back to it. Skipping around, hip-hopping, having fun. I'm telling you, this is very festive for many of these people. Very festive. If I were Walmart, I'd shut that store down and I'd pull out. I wouldn't have anything to do with serving people like this. Again, I don't care what race they are. They don't deserve the service. Okay? It's real simple. If this is not dealt with, what word can I use? Decisively and immediately, it will go on. They will all become emboldened. They will laugh at the rule of law. And this country will be on its knees very quickly. Go ahead, Frosty.
Well, and I want to second that because I lived through Detroit. I watched Detroit. I watched the metastasis, if you will, like a cancer. It metastasized.
Yeah, I get
the
it.
violence in the classrooms, and so the Americans that could not handle that and were not part of that kind of violence, they left Detroit, and Detroit fell. Think about what it looks like in Detroit today with 1.2 million people who lived in homes. You can go through Detroit. I have, block after block, mile after mile of abandoned homes, broken glass. It almost looks like a set out of a movie. You can see some of the big theaters in Detroit totally and completely destroyed. Go on YouTube.
They're falling apart. They're negligence. There's nobody taking care of them. For 20, 30 years. Hey, listen, you did a story. We did it here with all those photographs, and right. you want to pull that story up again or find the link? I'll rerun it again, Frosty, because it makes the point. And that was how long ago?
2009. Yep, it's on Rense.com, The Tragedy of Detroit. I told it. The reason I wrote that story is because Time Magazine came in there, and I forget the name of the journalist, but he wrote the story about Detroit's tragic fall in Time Magazine. I still have a copy of it. I kid you not. And I said, oh, my God, he's writing from the outside. He's only reporting what he sees from an outside perspective. Sure. I was the one living it on the inside. I had to be afraid to drive my car through a stoplight on Telegraph Road or Joy or Ford Road. I mean, I know all the roads in Detroit. Why? Because I moved people out of Detroit, and I knew that city like the back of my hand. And so that's what happened. And so I wrote that story, and yes, it's on Rense.com. It was an exclusive, and it was one of the most read, I think, across the entire spectrum.
The formal name again?
Tragedy of Detroit.
Okay, I'm going to pull
Tragedy
it up.
of Detroit, Rense.com. It's right there. It's got about 12 different pictures. And the reason, in fact, some other photographer in Detroit said that this was the best expose of what happened to Detroit from somebody who was working there, and an inside journalist, if you will. He said, Mr. Wooldridge, can I put pictures to this? And I said, send them to me. I'll put them right in there, and he did. And you see that again. Yeah, put it on the front page. If we continue on this path and allow these anarchists, and again, whatever their color is or whatever there is, if we allow them to continue this kind of jungle lawlessness, this kind of anarchy, this kind of mayhem, they will do more of it. That's why they must be crushed with the rule of law and extraordinary force, curfews until everything is settled down, and so that any one of them that's out on the streets past 6 o'clock at night and wants to have a big gathering and starts, and they're past the curfew, automatic, I don't care, 5 years in jail, 1 year in jail, $10,000 or $20,000 fine. I want them off my streets. This is my America. It's your America.
Right. Automatic 1 year in jail, and every day out cleaning and restoring the damages.
Oh, yeah.
Every day.
Probably maybe 1,000 hours of community service. Otherwise, you go to jail for 5 years. Right. And I'll be happy to pay their jail, room and board. It's 3 hots and a cot. I'll be happy. And I know everybody in America that's a law-abiding, tax-paying citizen, red, white, brown, black, doesn't make any difference. I'll bet you $5 you're nodding your head right now, and you're agreeing that this is what's got to happen, and we support it because this is our country. We know all the other countries that are out there, all the citizens that are having all the troubles, they can't wait till we get to America. Well, guess what, folks? I can't. I don't want to go to India. I've been there. I sure as hell don't want to go to Bangladesh. I sure as hell don't want to go to Mexico. I don't want to go to any of these other countries. Why? Because I've been there. So there's no place for us to go as Americans to enjoy the freedoms, the personal choices, the ability to speak our mind, the chance to vote for whom we want as a leader, the choice of a job, the choice of education. Folks, it doesn't get any better than the United States of America and the U.S. Constitution. I'm here to tell you, I've lived a lifetime around this planet. We are the best hope for humanity. We need to sustain and maintain our society and the rule of law. Can I make myself any clearer on this, Jeff?
No, that was 100% spot on. No, got it. Absolutely. Okay. In contrast to the extraordinary honesty that Frosty is speaking, we have this political horror called a campaign. The only good thing that has come from this is that what I've been saying since college, and you probably have too, many of you, we only need a 6 or 8 week campaign season. We don't need a 1.5 year campaign season. We can do it in 3 months. We can do it in 90 days. That's it. Boom. 3 debates. You make your decision. We already know who's who. So, sorry about that, Madison Avenue advertising executives. You're not needed to make this democracy and republic function as it was designed to. We don't need you. So anyway, that was another thing. Now, here's a weird story. Princess Ivanka, again, has gone to pray at the tomb of the Lubavitch founding Rebbe. They also called them Rebbes, not rabbis. His formal name was Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. The Lubavitch sect, the Jewish Lubavitch sect, of which the princess and her loving husband, Jerry, are devout members. Now, if you don't know anything about the Lubavitchers, most of you listening do, you really need to go and read up on Rabbi Schneerson, Schneerson, Rabbi Schneerson, and see what he had to say about white people, Caucasians, non-Jews. Look, your jaw will be hanging. The hate he has for us, and you have to think that maybe that has something to do with why Jerry Kushner several months ago referred to all of us, and remember he is an American citizen, he referred to all of us as the Americans. Well, the Americans will have enough PPE. They'll have enough this and that. No, Jerry, we don't. And it's odd of you to call us something you aren't. The Americans will have this or that. That's what he said. So there you go. But read up on Schneerson, Rabbi Schneerson. Read what he has to say about the Goyim. Those are non-Jews, white usually. And I think your jaw will hit the table. That's who the princess and Jerry are firmly in allegiance to, with, and of. So there you go. Have you ever read anything about Rabbi Schneerson?
No, I haven't, Jeff. One of the things that I understand that there are underlying forces working to destroy America right now. I'm very much aware of that.
We're being invaded. Come on, these are they're foreign paid mercenaries being sent here to organize, collate, and format the resistance, the communist insurrection. It's an invasion of America. And
of course, I think most of you, I don't know how many people have read, I know there's been quite I don't know what the number is, but I wrote that book in 2003, The 8 Ways to Destroy America. That's also on Rense.com. Yeah. But I asked Governor Lamb, who's been a friend of mine for, 30 years now, but Governor Lamb at the time gave one of the greatest speeches that I've heard in my entire lifetime, and it's called The 8 Ways to Destroy America. Mm-hmm. And I asked him for permission, because I was in the audience there in Washington, D.C. at the time. Mm-hmm. And no one applauded. They were so stunned. This was there was 300 or 400 at this conference, and it was all about the 1965 Immigration Reform Act and how it was destroying America. And he put it so clearly. And again, you could feature that one again. I have that. Out of all the columns I've written, the one that says, what if 20 million illegal aliens vacated America? That's on Rense.com. That was one of the most read in the world, circulated all over the country. The 8 Ways to Destroy America, the speech by Governor Lamb, and of course the tragedy of Detroit. Those 3 articles that I wrote, because I was in the middle of all this maelstrom of controversy, have become benchmarks of what's happening to our country. And there's a lot of writers out there, but very few of them have been a teacher, have been a truck driver, who've been a teacher in the middle of the inner city.
You've walked the ground, you've driven the highways, you've met the people, you know what you're talking about, and nobody, unless they're out there doing it, can lay claim to that kind of wisdom.
Nope.
Can't do it.
They can't. You know, and fortunately, having had a chance to travel all over the globe, unbelievable perspective. And Jeff, I had no idea what I was gathering in my life to understand what's happening to America now. But I did gather it. I have collated it. I have come up with, and again, my book, in 2003, it came out, Immigration's Unarmed Invasion, Deadly Consequences. It's on Amazon. It's still for sale. I got called all sorts of names for it, but I can say this with absolute certitude. That book is coming true faster than anyone ever dreamed. Yeah. And now Lamb is around 80 years old. He's not that involved anymore. But it is terrifying when you start putting the pieces together. And what I took was each one of his points, 1 through 8. And even Victor Davis Hanson, who wrote Mexifornia, is also one of the sages, if you will, the predictors of what's happening to us. And I was just a messenger, but I filled in the blanks with each one of those 8 points. If you haven't read that, go on to Rense.com and look up the 8 Ways to Destroy America, a speech by Governor Lamb. Read it, and you'll sit there and see the 8 points, and they are exactly what's happening to our country and how it's fracturing at the seams, how it's fragmenting, our culture's being destroyed, pride in our country is being destroyed, our own kids are hating their own country. Everybody is saying that everyone white in this country is a racist, which is so completely bogus, because this country has welcomed more people of color than all other countries combined. Everybody's praying to get to America, and most of them are people of color from around the world. That shows you that we are not a racist nation. We are not out to get anyone, persons of color. You have the most opportunities as a human being here in the United States of America, more than any other place on the planet.
I would suggest to all African Americans living here who hate this country, hate the Constitution, hate our way of life here, that they go home. They go back to Africa. Which country was it? Doggone it.
Somalia is a place you...
one of them...
Well, just go to Sudan or go to Somalia or go to Ethiopia or the Congo and get a piece of what it's like to live over in Africa.
One of them invited all American blacks to come over and live in their country on them, free, no charge whatsoever.
I think, was it Nigeria?
No.
No, it wasn't Nigeria. Liberia.
Anyway.
Liberia.
No, it wasn't Liberia.
Okay, well, it was one of those countries, and not one single black in this country took that leader
the offer
up.
No, they didn't
take it. Not one single one. What people don't understand is that somewhere around 90% of Africans don't have a toilet to use. And let me say that again. You can look it up. 90% of Africans don't have a toilet.
Ghana. The president of Ghana.
That's right.
To black Americans, come home. We'll help you build a life. Right?
Yep.
Come home.
Yeah.
So there you go. Go home. If you don't like it here, go home. Any of you Asians don't like it here, go home.
Yeah.
Any group. Any of you white people who here don't like it, go back to Europe. Whatever. Just shut the hell up. There's all this bitching and whining about how terrible things are, how you've been discriminated against, and how reparations are owed to all the blacks who 300 years ago were held in slavery through no fault of their own. But who was behind slavery? Who created the industry? International Zionism. Don't forget that. This was a Jewish business. You want to go after somebody for reparations, go after Israel. Go after the Jewish heartland, okay? They were behind the whole slavery movement. Now, let me say this. There were more Caucasian slaves held for life by the Muslim Empire than all the blacks who were ever sold out of Africa to Jewish slave traders and brought to America. There were more whites held as slaves by Muslims during the height of the Muslim Empire than all the blacks who were ever brought here as slaves. You got to keep your perspective on your hat and keep your hat firmly on your head. If you don't have the facts, you're just running your mouth. Does you no good.
Well, I would also add to that we, the United States of America, and the United States Constitution, this country was the first country to outlaw slavery. And slavery has been a systemic and endemic part of humanity since history has been recorded.
Oh, it's not going to end either. It won't end.
Oh, it is not going to, because the Muslims and the Africans right now in Africa, slavery is a part of their deal. And Correct. If you happen to be a slave, you are going to be a slave, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. Here in America, you have the right and the ability to be a free, an individual person, and do whatever. You have every right, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That was all and is guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution over and above any other country in history. Again, I'll say this again, every person of every color, every creed, every class, get down on your knees and thank God you live in the United States of America, and salute, put your hand over your heart for the United States, old glory, our flag with 50 states that represent, and 13 stripes that represent the 13 colonies, because it doesn't get any better than this. And I right now, go read the Strange Death of Europe by Douglas Murray if you want to see what's happening to Europe. And the latest one, her name is Claire Lewis, wrote a book called The Blackening of Europe. Europe is headed for one nasty future because they're being invaded by Africa, and they're being invaded by Muslims.
That's right. Same with the Muslims.
Yeah. They have invaded Europe, and they're turning Europe from a extraordinary. I've been in Europe 3 times now. Europe is being turned back into a 6th century nightmare. Everybody, just last week, a French teacher was beheaded by another Muslim because he didn't like what the teacher had to say. In a free and
the teacher was defending the right of the Charlie Hebdo comics to post what they wanted about
That's right.
But it's insanity. The whole religion of Islam, as predicated in the Quran, should scare the living hell out of anybody who reads it.
Anybody, because I've read it. The Quran is the most violent book I've ever read in my life. It tells people to cut people's heads off, cut their hands off, cut their fingers off. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Women have no rights. Children have no rights. Animals have no rights. Women have no choice of spouse. I mean, the violence toward women, 20,000 honor killings every year in Muslim-dominated countries. I want you to swallow that hard. That means a man, an uncle, or a brother gets to kill a sister or a mother or an aunt or any female that they want to kill legally through the aspects of the Quran, and they do. And the United Nations, look it up, their best research shows a minimum of 20,000 killings of women every single year. Every single year, year in and year out, decade in and decade out. In other words, a Muslim woman has to be terrified for her life, all of her life, because she is expendable. They shoot them, they stone them, they cut their throats, they suffocate them, you name it. The Islamic world is the most violent against women, against free speech, against choice of religion. I mean, there's fatwas out there, which means if you try to get out of Islam, you have a fatwa put on you. That's a contract to kill you. That is the absolute reality of Islam. It's now being practiced over here because, according to the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, there are between 23 and 27 honor killings in our country every year now that they know of.
Wherever you are around the world, you are appreciated.